take it
No
back
room
to-
left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
After Trump said there was no room left for negotiations that could lower the tariffs for imports from Canada and Mexico, the Dow Jones dropped 649 points, the S&P 500 fall 1.75%, and the Nasdaq declined 2.6%.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. In other words, you build, and this is exactly what Mr. Wei is doing, by building here. Otherwise, they'll build, if they did them in Taiwan to send them here, they'll have 25% or 30% or 50% or whatever the number may be someday. It'll go only up.
President Donald Trump's administration has made headlines with significant decisions regarding tariffs, particularly those affecting Canada, Mexico, and China. The recent announcement of a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, coupled with a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, has stirred both economic concern and political debate.
If Trump is imposing tariffs, we're ready. We are ready with $155 billion worth of tariffs, and we're ready with the first tranche of tariffs, which is $30 billion, which is already known.
He needs to pull back. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen here. President Trump ran on a mandate to create more jobs, keep inflation and low and lower cost. It's going to work totally opposite. Plants will close down within a week. Assembly plants in Michigan, which is a red state. Manufacturing will stop. And the people of the U.S., which I absolutely love, the American people, they're going to be paying more. The market is going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team. It's going to be an absolute disaster for both countries. We're your largest trading partner. I don't want to respond, but we will respond like they've never seen before.
The impact of recent remarks on the U.S. stock market, a major sell-off, highlights the potential economic conflict Warren Buffett describes when he calls tariffs an act of war to some degree. Let's break down what these tariffs mean for you, your wallet, and the economy.
Tariffs are actually, we've had a lot of experience with them. They're an act of war to some degree.
Tariffs are essentially taxes imposed on imported goods, designed to make foreign products more expensive and less competitive compared to domestic goods. When a tariff is enacted, the company importing the goods pays this tax upon entry into the country. For example, a $50,000 car imported with a 25% tariff would incur a $12,500 charge. While the immediate financial burden falls on the importing companies, the reality is that these costs are often passed down to consumers through higher prices. This means that while the government collects revenue from tariffs, the economic impact is frequently felt by everyday consumers.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that, but long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country, not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why we owe $36 trillion.
The rationale behind Trump's tariffs. Trump's administration argues that these tariffs serve multiple purposes. Primarily, they aim to protect American jobs and industries by discouraging the importation of cheaper goods that compete with local products. Trump has made it clear that he believes these tariffs will incentivize companies to manufacture more within the United States. Moreover, the administration claims that the tariffs are a strategic move to pressure Canada and Mexico to address issues related to immigration and drug trafficking.
The facts establish very clearly that Canada is not an issue in terms of source of illegal fentanyl into the United States. We had about less than 1% when we first started talking about this many months ago. That number is significantly lower than that, even now.
However, critics highlight that the rationale behind these tariffs is often oversimplified, as evidenced by the fact that less than 1% of fentanyl entering the U.S. last year originated from Canada. Warren Buffett on tariffs. In a recent interview with CBS, Warren Buffett characterized tariffs as a form of economic warfare. Drawing upon his extensive experience, he explained that tariffs function as a tax levied on imported goods, ultimately resulting in increased costs for consumers. He illustrated this point with a colloquial remark, suggesting that the costs are not absorbed by an external entity. Tariffs disrupt established trade relationships between nations by imposing additional taxes on imported products. These increased costs are subsequently passed on to consumers in the form of elevated prices. Economists generally regard tariffs as a political instrument, often employed in trade disputes, rather than an efficient mechanism for international commerce. During the interview, Buffett also addressed economic matters. He emphasized the importance of considering the consequential effects of economic policies. He stressed the necessity of asking, "And then what?" when evaluating the implications of tariffs or any economic decision in order to ascertain the ultimate bearers of the financial burden. The economic impact of tariffs. The economic implications of these tariffs are vast and complex. Economists warn that the tariffs will lead to increased prices for consumers. Estimates suggest that the average household could see costs rise by as much as $2,000 annually due to higher prices on everyday items such as groceries, electronics, and clothing. Additionally, the automotive industry is particularly vulnerable. Experts predict that the cost of a new car could increase by approximately $3,000 as a result of these tariffs. Ford's CEO has voiced concerns, stating that the long-term impact of a 25% tariff would create significant challenges for U.S. industry, consumer costs, and inflation. With tariffs in place, consumers will likely face higher prices across the board. The Federal Reserve of Atlanta estimates that these tariffs could drive everyday purchase prices up by 0.81% to 1.63%. This increase in costs comes at a time when inflation is already a pressing concern, further straining household budgets. The combination of rising prices and stagnant wages could exacerbate economic difficulties for many families. It's essential to consider that while tariffs are intended to protect domestic industries, they can simultaneously lead to inflationary pressures that harm consumers, particularly those in lower income brackets. Retaliation from Canada and Mexico. In response to the tariffs, both Canada and Mexico have vowed to retaliate. Canadian officials have promised a strong, unequivocal, and proportional response to the imposed tariffs. This retaliation could lead to a cycle of escalating tariffs between the U.S. and its northern and southern neighbors, further complicating international trade relationships. Such retaliatory measures could impact a wide array of American exports, from agricultural products to manufactured goods. The potential for a trade war looms large, with economists warning that retaliatory tariffs could hurt U.S. exporters and lead to increased prices domestically. The broader economic implications. The introduction of these tariffs does not happen in a vacuum. The U.S. economy is intricately linked with both Canada and Mexico, with a significant portion of trade reliant on these relationships. Approximately 50% of U.S. imports come from these countries, and tariffs can disrupt supply chains that are vital for many industries. For instance, the automotive sector relies heavily on parts manufactured in both Canada and Mexico. The imposition of tariffs could lead to increased production costs, which in turn would be passed on to consumers in the form of higher vehicle prices. Long-term effects on employment and industry. While Trump has touted the tariffs as a means to protect American jobs, the reality may be more complicated. Research indicates that the job protection argument is not as clear-cut as it appears. In fact, studies have shown that previous tariffs, such as those imposed on steel and aluminum, did not significantly bolster employment in the affected sectors. Moreover, the tariffs could lead to job losses in industries reliant on imported goods, as companies may be forced to cut costs in response to higher prices. The net effect on employment could thus be detrimental rather than beneficial, raising questions about the overall efficacy of this approach. As President Trump prepares to address the nation regarding these tariffs, the economic implications remain a topic of intense debate. While the intention behind the tariffs is to bolster domestic industry and protect American jobs, the reality is that they may lead to higher consumer prices, inflation, and potential retaliatory measures from key trading partners. In the coming months, it will be crucial to monitor how these tariffs unfold, their impact on the economy, and the response from both consumers and foreign governments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. If you're concerned about your financial security and are thinking about investing, check out the first link in the description. It's the players. Click the link to learn more.